What up guys, Max here bringing you a brand new Ekko YouTube video, and in today's video we're going back to Ekko University. That's right, it's open and better than ever, and in today's lesson we're going to learn about Season 13 Ekko. So let's get right into it. Alright, so let's get into the Economic Season 13 rundown. We're going to start with Ekko's best runes, then his best builds, and then this part is really important. We'll be going through his damage numbers through each point in the game, so you know exactly how much damage Ekko could do at certain points and certain traits, and see if you can one-shot or not, which is really important for limit testing. We'll go into Ekko's best playstyles for early game, his must bans, and then lastly we'll end it off with Ekko's current meta rating and his issues and what he's good at, what he's bad at, and etc. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, let's get into Ekko's best rune pages for Season 13. There's pretty much two main trees and then several variations between them. So let's get into the most common, probably the most popular one, but also probably the most safe and reliable one. And that's Electrocute with Sorcery. So you can go Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, and Treasure Hunter. You could theoretically go Relentless Hunter, maybe Ultimate Hunter, but I feel like for solo queue, getting as much gold as possible is the best thing for Ekko since he's a really gold heavy champion. That's why I prefer this side like this, and most people do as well, with occasionally you see some Relentless Hunter, which is not bad. I used it before. But the secondary tree will be Sorcery, and most often you see Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm. Obviously it's really reliable for late game scaling. And then you go double adaptive and then Armor or MR. But if you don't know who you're versing, then you'll probably go HP just to be safe. That being said, this is probably like the most basic and common one. Me personally, I don't like Gathering Storm because most of my games are below 30 minutes recently. So below 30 minutes, Gathering Storm only gives you 24 AP, and that's only for like 10 minutes. So I prefer Scorch because Scorch will probably do like 400 to 500 damage by 20 minutes, which is actually really good. So I prefer this rune tree as probably my favorite one at the moment if I want to go Sorcery secondary. So the other variation you could do from Domination, instead of Sorcery, you could go Inspiration. Inspiration is sort of like the OG way of playing Ekko a couple of years ago, where you would go Magical Footwear into DMATs. DMATs are good for one-shotting the back wave with Ekko's Q at level 7. You need 88 AP if you use 2 DMATs on the casters. Or if you use 1 DMAT on the casters, you need like 105 AP to one-shot the wave, which is a lot easier to get now. But if someone who wants to start Corrupting Potion, then if you don't get any kills and you start Corrupting Potion, you'll need DMATs to one-shot the wave level 7 because you won't have enough AP. But if you're fine with that, then you could go like Cosmic Insight, or you could go Futures Market, depending on how you want to play the game. But if you are going to play this Inspiration playstyle, then DMATs are pretty solid to always guaranteeing that you'll always have Prio at level 7. This rune page is good. It might be situationally good into matchups where like you're versing someone who has really good wave clear, or someone who's always has Prio on you. So you use DMATs and you help yourself push the wave easily right back at them. And also Magical Footwear is always nice to get free boots that are better, and you save 300 gold. So this is another rune page you could do. And then the completely other rune page would be, that I get a lot of questions on, is First Strike. You go First Strike, free boots, whatever you want here. But if you're going like, if you want the the good wave clear, you go DMATs and Cosmic Insight into Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm. You could also go Futures Market. Like I said, this is depending on how you want to play the game. If you're confident you'll get enough AP to one-shot the wave, or it doesn't matter to you, then you don't have to go DMATs. But in some games where it's a little bit harder, or you're versing someone who's like, bullies you a lot, maybe you want better wave clear, or you just go for the money path and you go Futures Market. Biscuits are kind of not that good anymore, so I would avoid them. But you could go Biscuits if you really want to just perma trade and just keep fighting and just having sustain. And then obviously go Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm. So this rune page is, or Absolute Focus, Scorch. So this rune page is like it's good and it's bad. I get a lot of questions about it. Basically, you print money with First Strike. The point is for you to print enough money to get your items faster, then you snowball faster. It's sort of like a double-edged sword because you're losing Electrocute Burst, you're losing Sudden Impact Burst, you're losing a lot of these things. And if they auto attack you or hit you first, then it doesn't even work. It goes on cooldown. But if you do pull it off, early mid game, you'll get like 100+ gold a trade, which you don't even have to kill them. You do 1 or 2 trades and you already have a kill worth of gold. So it's very situational. It's probably better versus melee champions. Probably good in the jungle as well. But yeah, like I like it, but I also don't like this room page. And then obviously you could go another variation where you go eyeball collection and then treasure hunter to get even more gold. But then if you fall behind, you have no bonus AP at all. You're missing a lot of damage with no electrocute. So if you fall behind on this room page, it'll feel very, very bad. But that being said, those are the Ekko room pages that I've been using. All right, so let's get into Ekko's build path for the mid lane in Season 13. There's several variations depending on what playstyle you choose to play. And we'll go over that in a little bit. But for the most part, you have 3 options. You start Dark Seal Refillable, or you start Doran's Ring, or you start Corrupting Potion. Those are the 3 options you have. But then after, you would always buy another starting item. So if you start Dark Seal Refillable, you'll buy a Doran's Ring on your first back. If you start Corrupting Potion, you'll buy a Dark Seal on your next back. And if you start Doran's Ring, you'll probably buy Refillable Dark Seal after. So you pretty much end up buying majority of these items anyway, but that's your early game. And then for your core items, obviously we build Proto Belt. You'll buy the Blasting Wand first into an Amplifying Tome. Why? Because you need to get that AP to one-shot the wave. If you buy Alternator first, you won't get enough AP for the amount of gold you spend to one-shot the wave at level 7, unless you get fed from Dark Seal stacks. And then after you build Proto Belts, you go into your boots, usually Stork Boots. If Ekko does not build Stork Boots, he loses around 150 damage. 100 to 150 damage, which is a lot. So Stork Boots are really important on Ekko. Usually you always want to build a Medjais or at least keep your Dark Steel stacked so you can one-shot people. And Snowball, because AP champions are kind of struggling at the moment. Well, most of them. After you get your Proto Belt boots, you have a choice of Lichbane, Nashers, or even maybe Shadow Flame. So Shadow Flame gives you the HP and actually the most burst out of the 3, but no utility at all aside from HP. Lichbane gives you the least damage out of the 3, but gives you ability haste and movement speed, right? And then Nashers gives you almost as much damage as Shadow Flame, but if you auto attack one more time, you will have that damage, and also gives you the on hit and attack speed. So really nice for killing like bruisers and tanks. So which one do you build? Honestly, you could build any one of these 3 next as your 3rd item. I personally prefer Nashers because it helps you kill the most amount of champions. Lichbane, it just feels like the CDR is good, but Lichbane's 2nd item feels pretty weak. But you could build it. And then Shadow Flame doesn't feel that bad because you'll become tankier with a 200 HP and you'll do a little bit more burst damage. But then you sort of lose out on CDR, movement speed, or attack speed on hit. So you could pick any one of these 3. I personally pick Nashers. And then after you build one of these 3, you have to go for a Death Cap. Death Cap is by far, it's pretty much Ekko's only 3rd main item. You have to build Death Cap for that burst. And then after Death Cap, you go Void Staff. And then you finish it off with any one of these you didn't finish building before. So pretty much these are your core items over here. Situationally, I haven't built these in a long time because they were super nerfed and super bad at the moment. Like Zanya's is only good for its stasis, which is good in some games, but I would only build it if you're getting carried and maybe like last item. But for the most part, Zanya's really bad stats for Ekko. Banshees is not bad. Banshees is not bad. It only costs 2,600 gold for a good amount of AP, but it's really easy to break the shield and then you just have an okay item. But for the most part, I don't even build these. I just stick to this core items, and that's pretty much Ekko's build. Alright guys, let's get into Ekko's damage numbers. This is really important to know how much damage Ekko can dish out at every stage of the game, because if you know this information, you'll know exactly when you could one-shot somebody, when you could trade, when you could go for the kill, when you have to run away. This is really important. So we'll go through every stage of the game with pretty much every item combination that's important. Let's start off with the earliest of the early game. So obviously we're gonna go, these are my runes here. I'm gonna use Scorch, Absolute Focus, then obviously Electrocute. We're gonna be level 3 for the starting out spot. You go 1, 2, 3. And theoretically, we're versing an opponent in the early game when we're level 3 they'll have around 900 HP, maybe 850, depending on the champion, and around 35 to 40 MR. This is early game Ekko full combo. Let's get into it. So in the early game, if you have around 39 AP, give or take, Ekko's full combo with Electrocute will do around 368 damage without Ignite. So you add Ignite onto that, it'll be around 480. So that's how much Ekko does in early game, 368 full combo. Usually you would buy a Dorn's Ring, maybe boots, and this is how you would probably look at around level 5 if the game is going normally. I do my own stats. 2 points in Q. And the enemy will probably still have around the same stats, probably around 40 MR still, and probably 1,000 health. So it's pretty much the same. As see, I have 1,000 health, so it's pretty much the same, and about 46 MR. So maybe they'll have 50 here. So let's add 50. Okay, that makes more sense, especially if they had the MR rune. So now an Ekko's combo would do after your first back with these items. Around 465 damage without Ignite. With Ignite, it'll be another 150, which would be around 600 full combo, or 465 without Ignite. So Ekko's next point in the game is probably your third or fourth back. When you get a Blasting Wand, you have around 100 AP. The enemy, you should be level 7 by now. The enemy will also be like level 7. So I'm matching my health and MR. So now let's see how much your combo does at 100 AP. You get around 600 damage without Ignite. With Ignite, it would be almost 800. We also have Electrocute, right? So Electrocute does around 100 damage as well. So without Electrocute, you'll be doing 100 less. With Ignite, you'll be doing 200 more. So for the most part, 600 damage with Ekko at this point in the game.
Every second matters.
And now after one more back, you'll have an Alternator. And the enemy will probably have a little bit more MR depending on the champion. I'll keep it at 50 though, but we'll add more HP. We'll have like 1300. I have 14, almost 1500. Probably 1400 like this. Give or take the MR, but for the most part, this is what you would look like. 127 AP. How much damage does Ekko do? So with Alternator, you do 733 with Electrocute. With Ignite, it'll be another 210, so that'll be around 950. So keep these numbers in mind when you're trying to kill somebody in-game. And now we're at our first major power spike. We are at Proto Belt, probably around level 9, depending on how fast you get fed. I'll add a little bit more HP to my enemy. And now let's see how much a full combo at Proto Belt does. 901 full combo, no Ignite. So if you remove Electrocute, you probably do around 780, 770. If you have Ignite as well, you do around 1100 damage. So basically 700, let's say 800 to 1100 damage depending on Electrocute and Ignite, but the average would be 900. So in reality, Ekko doesn't do that much damage compared to other champions. And now lastly, we'll throw in boots. Earlier I said that boots give you a good 100 damage on Ekko, so let's see how much boots add to Ekko's damage. Went from 901 to 1021. So boots give you 102 extra damage as soon as you build them. That's why sword boots are very important in Ekko. So this is probably your first main power spike. Remember, we have no Dark Seal stacks, so you'll be doing a little bit more or a little bit less depending on how fed you are. Alright, so now when you get to Nashers or whatever secondary item you use, they'll pretty much do around the same damage in burst. It's like 100 difference, but let's level up. We'll probably be around level 11. We'll probably be around level 11. We have Nashers. The enemy will probably have, in an average scenario, similar health to me. Let's do 1700. Ekko does build some HP items. And 60 MR, maybe like 55. So we might do a little bit less damage, but usually it's like 50, low 50s of MR if they have no Merc Treads. Obviously, if they have more MR, it's different. But let's see how much a full Ekko combo does now. Perfectly in the mid game at 2 items. So Ekko does 1353 damage. So 1353. With Proto Belt, Nashers, if you had Ignite in there, it would do around 1600. If you were missing Electrocute and you didn't Ignite either, then you'll probably remove like almost 200, so it'll be like 1100. And the last one I'll show you is probably when you get your death cap completed. So let's level up probably around level 14, depending how the game's going. And this is how much damage a full... This is where Ekko becomes his strongest, basically. You'll do starting to do above 2,000 damage. So as soon as you get to this point in the game, you start doing up to pushing 2,000 damage. So you'll be able to start one-shotting anybody. All right, guys, let's get into some play styles for Ekko. There's two main ones. There's Ignite Ekko and there's Teleport Ekko. I know some people go TP and Ignite, but for me personally, I feel like Ekko needs Flash. He has a lot of great Flash engages to secure kills and start plays, so I personally don't like going TP Ignite. So that's why I stick to either Flash Ignite or Flash Teleport. But that being said, in this first clip, we'll be versing a ranged champion with Ignite Corrupting Potion Ekko. You could also go Ignite Doran's Ring, but you never really want to go Dark Seal and Ignite, because if you go Dark Seal and Ignite, you'll run out of mana very fast and you have no sustain, and then you can't even TP back to lane. The only way Ignite and Dark Seal works is if somehow you get the perfect push, the perfect back, and the enemy basically lets you do whatever you want, so you don't lose any minions or anything, and you don't get punished. So it's kind of not reliable to go Dark Seal and Ignite. But that being said, because we have Ignite and Corrupting Potion, we have a good amount of sustain, and we want to fight a little bit and try to go for some kills, because we go Ignite for the kills. And we have Corrupting Potion to stay in lane longer and maybe set up these kills. So we know that the enemy Talia, she doesn't go Corrupting Potion, right? So depending on what the enemy starts, if they start 2 health potions with the Doran's Ring and you have Corrupting Potion, your first goal is to make sure that that enemy mid laner uses her health potions, because that means she loses some gold, right? She loses 50 gold. Or in total, she'll lose 100 gold, and then she'll be forced to buy more potions on her next back, or she'll be forced to buy refillable. So you already have a nice little, gold lead right there. So you want to look for trades as much as possible. Obviously, trading depends on the matchup. You want to wait for the enemy's cooldowns to be down, and then you go for nice trades. When you're playing with a little bit more of a sustain like this, Corrupting Potion, you have a little bit more kill pressure with Ignite. And I have a jungler that maybe wants to fight or invade or go for Scuttle. Then you want to have Prio, right? So this entire early laning phase, I'm getting Prio for my jungler. As you see, he is going for Scuttle, and I'm also making sure that Talia is taking some poke damage. And anytime that I want to fight her, I'm making sure I'm throwing my W and getting some protection there. Just basically, trading, pushing the lane, getting Prio. But we have Ignite, right? And because we have Ignite, because we have Corrupting Potion, we want to go for the kill because we have more sustain than Talia does. As you see, she has less than half HP, she has little mana, and we're still looking good. So we want to go for a kill here. And remember, we talked about how much damage Ekko does in the early game. I should be doing full combo right now, around 350, 360 damage. And then if you have Ignite in there, do another 100. So that's going to be like, close to 500 damage, right? Full combo. And so Talia is around 500 HP, so we could actually go for a kill here. And my jungler is next to me, so I'm not scared of the enemy jungler. And I flash in, there's the flash, go for the full combo, and just like that, Talia dies. So that being said, know your damage. You're playing Ignite with Corrupting Potion or Ignite with Doran's Ring. Go for some nice trades, then try to get a kill, because that's what we're trying to do. Alright, so let's get into Ekko's other playstyle, and this is the Teleport Ekko playstyle. So when you're going Teleport Ekko, it's sort of, if people always ask when you go Ignite, when you go Teleport, you can always go Ignite, you can always go Teleport. It's just when the lower elo you are, the easier it is to get a kill with Ignite, whereas the higher elo you are, the harder it is to get a kill with Ignite, because people are, play safer, play smarter. So that's why, and they also punish you harder for playing Ekko. That's why TP is pretty good in higher elos, but it's good in every elo. But when you're going Teleports, we want to go Dark Seal and Refillable. Why? You don't have to. Like I said, you could make variations. You can still go Dorans. You can still go whatever you want. But if you go Dark Seal Refillable, you're basically maximizing your early game gold, because you're not spending an extra 100 gold on, health potions and then having to buy a refillable potion after. And also, going teleport is also good versus Syndra, because Syndra does poke you a lot in the early game, even though you counter her later. So the point of teleport is basically to survive the early game and get yourself into a comfortable position to where you could just scale. That being said, when you're playing Dark Seal Echo, you want to try to Dark Seal teleport. You want to try to back at 400 gold. Here, it's kind of there's kind of an invade happening, so I have to make sure I rotate. You have to rotate to your team, especially when something like this is happening. I'm not going to flash for this because I don't need to because my team has it. And we're good. Okay, so nothing much happened from us here, but we just have to be there because we have to be there. It is what it is. Unfortunately, you kind of don't want things like that to happen if you're going Dark Seal Echo, because if you do one combo on somebody, you're out of mana. And then you're going to have to TP back to lane. So like I was saying before, your goal before you back is to get 400 gold. That is your main goal. That is your only goal. Because if you back before 400 gold, you cannot buy a Doran's Ring, and this whole thing is useless now. You also want to put 2 points into Q. Why? Because around this point, you'll have around 120 mana left, maybe 100 mana left. So you'll have enough mana for 2 Qs. And if you put 2 points in your Q, you'll be able to one-shot the backline with 2 Qs. So that's why I want to level up our Q so we could easily push them back. Here I took a trade. Why? Because I'm at 400 gold, and I know I'm backing. So I could just use all my mana to fight Syndra, run away, and now she is half HP, and I'm resetting here because I'm at 400 gold, and I get my Doran's Ring, and I can TP back to lane. The only real other scenario in this type of lane, so we got pushed in, right? Syndra's pushing into us, and we get the minions by TPing back. There's another scenario where, depending on the matchup, depending how much they harass, how they play, where you crash the wave into their tower, and then you back at 400 gold, and then you might not even have to TP back to lane because you could maybe just walk back and get all the waves. But here, we use the last 2 minions from the tower to set up a freeze towards us. Slow push towards us, which will end up being a freeze if we play correctly. But because Syndra saw that, we forced Syndra to TP, because if she didn't TP, she would have lost that entire wave because she had more minions than I did. But now, since I have Doran's Ring and Dark Seal, I could go for a little bit more trades now. I do good damage. I see on my minimap that Graves is invading, so we have to adapt. The wave is in a good spot. Syndra can't push it fast enough, and she has to rotate, but we rotate first. We know Graves doesn't have flash from the first fight. And just like that, we're able to kill Graves. And remember, I didn't flash for Graves that first fight because I didn't need to. My team got him. And now, look, he doesn't have flash. Now I have flash. So I'm able to get the kill, which is really good. And now I still pretty much get this entire wave. Unfortunately, I don't get the cannon, but I get the XP and some gold for all the other minions. So theoretically speaking, this is how you play Dark Seal Doran's Ring Echo. The strategy is basically just TP back to lane for the Doran's Ring, and either crash the wave or let it push into you. And but so it's pretty simple. But the whole point is for you to skip your really early game and get to your power spike, which is starting to get blasting wand, proto belt. So that's what we're playing for. But I'm gonna keep playing this a little bit longer because some cool stuff does happen, and we'll go a little bit longer into the laning phase. So now we have a blasting wand. So if you remember the earlier part of this guide, I talked about damage numbers, and we're at 107 AP. So Ekko right now should roughly be doing 600 damage full combo, maybe anywhere from like 550 to 600 ish, give or take how much MR they have, how much HP they have, whatever. So just remember that number, 600 AP. I mean, 600 AP. If we had 600 AP, we'd be one-shotting everybody. 600 damage full combo. So, and Syndra has probably around 1100, 1000 HP. So basically 2 full combos and Syndra dies. So we have to keep that in mind because we're going to go for a kill. Because at this point in the game, we have to start pressuring Syndra, because this is when we start becoming her counter. And we have a few items. So as soon as I see Syndra, I start EQing onto her. Sadly, I messed up my E. If you press E right before she presses her E, you'll snap onto her so since she can knock you away. But one thing you have to know is my cooldowns are lower than hers for her CC. So I trade with her. And now I have my ult. She doesn't know where my ult is. I know where my ult is. So I level up my ult instantly, throw a Q. Boom. I missed my R, but I repositioned. I almost hit my R on her, but it was basically for the reposition because she had less than 600 HP. so we'd be able to kill it even without my ult landing. And just like that, we now officially won the lane versus a Syndra. So that's the other Ekko strategy. You could do either one. This one's probably more safe and reliable, but you have to play early game a lot better because you have a lot less sustain. So for the must bans for Ekko right now for the start of Season 13, there's pretty much only 2 champions in mid lane that you'll always have to ban, and that's Kassadin and Sylas. Obviously we know Kassadin just got reworked, so he's a lot stronger now, and obviously Kassadin always countered Ekko, so Kassadin is someone you want to try to avoid. But to be honest, an even worse matchup than Kassadin is Sylas, only because Sylas is super strong right now. He deserves a nerf. The problem with Sylas is that it's hard for Ekko to kill Sylas in lane through all the healing. And if Sylas takes Ekko ult, then Sylas will be even harder to kill for your team and becomes basically a better Ekko. So those are the 2 champions you must ban right now. Obviously, there's other things that are really annoying in the meta that are outside of mid lane, like all the Hydra champions, sort of actually even like Zed and stuff. They're all the Hydra champions. You have these top lane bruisers, jungle bruisers. There's a lot of champions that are kind of hard. But for the most part, if you're playing mid lane, these are the 2 champions that you want to avoid as much as possible. So finally, what is Ekko's mid rating going into Season 13? And I give Ekko a B, a little B with a star, a little caveat. So basically, Ekko is a B because in the mid lane, he's a lot better in the jungle. I would say he's like an A, maybe A plus in the jungle. But for the mid lane, he's a B because he has to lane versus really, meta champions right now. He has to deal with all the Hydra champions, with all the Maw users, with all the shielding and healing. So basically, Ekko needs a lot of gold to get going. And then if he does get fed, the enemy team can resort to a Maw and negate a lot of your damage. But that's why I put a little star, a little caveat, a little asterisk, because if the enemy team doesn't have a Maw builder or doesn't have like a shield bow user or like a bruiser, then Ekko becomes pretty much like an A+ champion because you have nothing that, counters you per se. So I think primarily the meta Ekko is a B, but depending on the enemy team comp, depending on your team comp, if you have like 3 AP champions on your team, then you're kind of screwed because that enemy team's just gonna build MR. But if you're in a pretty decent team comp and the enemy team doesn't have a lot of Maw abusers, then Ekko is in a pretty decent spot. But overall, Ekko's a really fun champion to play, so I encourage you guys to play some Ekko. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.